when I was debating quitting my job, which is still the hardest decision I've made to this day, still of the many that I've made, was I figured that if I didn't make the entrepreneurship thing work, I would have a hell of a story for business school. And that was actually like the reasoned argument that I gave myself for being willing to quit, was that I think that with my experience, I'll still be able to get a job and I'll have a really cool story of entrepreneurship that I could use to apply to get into business school and then eventually get a job later. And so most times we catastrophize any failure to death, right? Which is like, I'm gonna fail, I'm gonna lose all my money, I'm gonna be homeless, no one's gonna talk to me, and I'm gonna die, right? But like, if you play it out 2 natural steps, like, okay, I lose everything. What do? I would probably have a couch or floor that someone would lend me, because at least socially, I haven't fucked everyone I know. And so I have that. It's like, okay, so I would have some capacity to do that. Okay, is there anything that I could do in the meantime in order to make money? Well, sure. I could drive Uber and strip. And I've already, I've told this story before, but for me, that was genuinely my plan B, because I knew that I could probably make 70, 80 grand a year driving Uber. I could probably make 150 stripping, maybe 200. Strip at the gay bars, the guys pay better. And then boom, I've got 280,000 a year. I could live on the floor and then I could restart again. And so that's because I don't have a lot of shame with that kind of stuff. That's not like, that doesn't matter to me. But I think playing out the fear, Layla says this and I love it, but that fear is a mile wide and an inch deep. And so it looks like this ocean that you're going to step into and drown. But as soon as you step into it, you realize it was not that deep at all and you can keep walking through it. And I just love that visual, because a lot of times when it's like we have this anxiety around this big decision we have to make, if you actually take the step and realize that it's not death, you're not going to drown immediately. There's plenty of other steps you can take from there, even if you get a little wet.
Did I tell you my story about a friend who went through a cancellation and was worried he was a coward?
Oh, like a public cancellation thing? Okay.
So I went for dinner quite a while ago now with this guy that I was pretty interested in, and he knew what I did, and we sort of bumped into each other and, what are you doing? Let's go for dinner. And I knew about the situation that he'd been through, but he didn't know that I knew. So I was like, tell me, like, there's no pressure. And he was able to be unencumbered. And basically he went through like a tough cancellation where kind of the whole world came down to bear on him. And he was telling me this story. I was in a very interesting time. I was like being very reflective. And he said, my whole life I'd been worried that I was a coward. I was terrified that I was a coward. But I'd never been through a situation where I'd had to bring absolutely everything to bear on my life. And I'm a hard man, and I like to hang around with hard men, and I like to shoot guns and do jiu-jitsu and be around Navy SEALs and stuff like that. But I always had this fear in the back of my mind that I might secretly be a coward. And then he said the cancellation thing happened, and it wasn't a very difficult 1-rep max. It wasn't a really hard CrossFit workout. It was something outside of his control. And he used this term that I love, and he said, I could always hear my better self clearing his throat in the room next door. And I always wondered what would happen if I had to really, really wrangle everything, if the whole world came crashing down on me. And I wanted to work out whether or not I was a coward. And he said, thankfully, he kicked the door in and came through. But I just love that I could always hear my better self clearing his throat in the room next door. But he'd never been fully tested. Done lots of hard things, a lot of acclaim, very successful, blah, blah, blah. But we all know, that's your thing, right? Like, but I'll know about whether or not you've left something on the table.
Mm-hmm.
And there was always just 5% still in the tank when he was doing things, about how he felt, about how invested he was. He always had a get out of jail free card in one way or another. And I love that. I could always hear my better self clearing his throat in the room next door.
2 things on that. So I think if we're consolidating some of the points we were making earlier, the "but I'll know" refrain, I think that a lot of the personal excellence comes down to making the "but I'll know" more important than the "what will everyone else think?" Because I think the true test of whether you're a quote perfectionist or not is if everyone else in the room says it's exceptional, and then you say, "But I'll know it's not, because I don't think it's exceptional yet." If you still break what everyone else believes is beautiful so that you can make the thing that you make it the way you want it to make, or make it the way you want it to be. I think that is probably like the truest test of whether or not you really do value your own opinion over those of other people's. And if you really want to be true to, quote, the art, whatever your art is, art, I'm using it as a generic term. It could be the career or even like the financial projections that you're supposed to do at your company. Like, there is a way you could do it and do it absolutely fucking excellent. And there's a way you could do it that you could phone it in and probably not get in trouble. But the thing is that you'd know. And then you'd be the type of person who always phones it in. And that to me is disgusting. And that would make me disgusted with me. And that is the thing that would make me want to peel my skin off, because I would hate me. And I think that's why so many people do hate them, because they do settle and they do make these things and they do know and still ignore it. And so they ignore the man in the other room who's clearing his throat, and they shut the door and they lock it and they never let that guy in. And so they look like everyone else, they act like everyone else, and they get what everyone else gets.